Gary, Neville, I'm from Bury too. You went to Elton, I went to Totty High, right? You know all about that. You are the person causing all the division by talking rubbish about people who just love their country. If they want to wave their own flag, they can do that. That doesn't mean automatically that some lunatic called jihad is going to go out and start slaughtering Jews. If you do think that is the case, if you think that's the natural consequence of waving British flags, then there is something wrong with you. Okay, I suggest that you look to another flag, that you look to the Palestinian flag, the flag of that fantasy country, which is just a wet dream for anti-Semitism, Jew hate and murder. Why don't you look to that? Why don't you look to the people who are waving that flag? Why don't you leave ordinary, decent people alone? You don't know what you're talking about, okay? I'm ashamed, actually, to be from the same place as you are. Stick to football, stick to Qatar, stick to all the money that you have there. Don't talk about politics. Keep your nose out of it. You really do not know what you're talking about. You are causing great harm. You are putting Jewish people at risk because you are emboldening Islamist nutcases. Let's just remember, the guy was called Jihad.
In a sharp rebuke that has ignited debate over the role of celebrity voices in British politics, cultural historian Dr. Philip Kiszely accused former England footballer and TV pundit Gary Neville of causing division and emboldening extremists with his public remarks about patriotism and the use of national symbols. Speaking in a video that quickly went viral on social media, Kiszely, himself a native of Bury like Neville, criticized the former Manchester United captain for implying that displays of the Union Jack are somehow linked to violent extremism. If you think that waving the British flag leads naturally to jihadist violence, then something is wrong with you, Kiszely declared. He went further, suggesting Neville's comments shift blame away from those promoting anti-Semitic hatred and instead demonize ordinary Britons who express national pride. Why not focus on the people waving the Palestinian flag? The flag of that fantasy country that's become a banner for anti-Semitism and violence? Kiszely asked, leave ordinary decent people alone? Kiszely's central claim is that Neville's rhetoric, intended as a critique of nationalism, in fact emboldens Islamist extremists and puts Britain's Jewish population at greater risk. He argued that linking traditional patriotic displays to hate crimes not only mischaracterizes most flag-waving Britons, but also distracts from genuine security threats such as extremist hate preachers or anti-Semitic agitators. By talking rubbish about people who just love their country, Kiszely said, you are putting Jewish people at risk because you embolden Islamist nutcases. This episode underscores the tension between celebrity figures who wade into political debates and critics who see such interventions as ill-informed, or reckless. Neville, who has used his platform in recent years to weigh in on immigration, inequality, and Britain's political climate, has often clashed with right-wing commentators. Kiszely's comments tap into a broader cultural rift, the perception that parts of Britain's commentariat, including prominent sports figures, are too quick to conflate patriotism with extremism, alienating voters who see themselves as both patriotic and law-abiding. The exchange has sparked heated online discussion, with supporters of Neville defending his right to speak out against what they view as nationalist dog whistling, while Kiszely's backers applaud his blunt defense of ordinary Britons and the Jewish community. As Britain grapples with a rise in anti-Semitic incidents and heightened tensions around Middle East conflicts, the row illustrates the high-stakes nature of political speech in the public square, and the risks when influential voices, whether athletes or academics, clash over the meaning of patriotism, national identity, and public safety.
Right, guys, in the UK, it is now October the 7th. Thomas, what have we learnt in the last 2 years? What do you think about when you consider that day?
Yeah, well, I think, it was obviously a horrific day, and I think this really comes down to showing how, aggressive the president has been on this issue. He's really put this as the forefront of his, administration. He's only been in for not really that long, if you think about it. In comparison to, if you think of what the British government are doing, I haven't seen Keir Starmer going out there trying to orchestrate a peace deal, even the EU trying to do a peace deal. It's all come down to the Americans. And I think what we're really seeing is actually, it's civilians on both sides. It's civilians in Israel, it's civilians in Palestine that are so ready for this to end. And the fact is that Hamas is not taking the deal. And the deal is on the table. I think it's the best deal they're going to get. I think it's time they took the deal.
We will bring you in just a moment a statement that the Prime Minister has made actually in the last few moments about October the 7th. It will be interesting to see, his kind of response to this, because he's always treading on eggshells to some degree, isn't he? Joel, your thoughts as an American, the Middle East, it looks like, as Thomas said, Donald Trump is the person who's brought both sides together. In fact, it's more than that, because it is many more countries in the Middle East that have to collaborate to make this peace resolution work. Will it, and what are your reflections today?
Well, Bev, for me, this is very personal. I'm Jewish, fifth-generation American. I have family in Israel, and I remember October 7th 2 years ago, and I remember the reaction from many people who I considered friends and colleagues in the Democratic Party and on the left, who would call me and say, Joel, those attacks against the Israeli civilians, well, they're soldiers anyways. And so for me, it's been very difficult to watch. I believe that the rise in anti-Semitism here in the United States from my side of the aisle has been deplorable. I fear what's happened in Britain. The Jews who were murdered in Manchester, that was not an aberration. That's part of a broader hate that's been ongoing, and the incitement of that as well. And that's different from what's happening on the ground in Israel. And I think that's where we have to be very clear. There is a hard war in the Middle East that is complicated and multi-decades long that needs to be dealt with. But what we're facing here at home, and what the British Jews are facing as well, and Australia as well, it's been very difficult in Australia. There should be no excuse and no room given to those who want to leverage that war for their own hate.
Let's have a look at this statement from the Prime Minister, some breaking news. In the last few minutes, Sir Keir Starmer released this statement. The Prime Minister said, "Our Jewish communities have endured rising anti-Semitism on our streets, in our country, and last week a horrifying terrorist attack on the holy day of Yom Kippur in Manchester. This is a stain on who we are, and this country will always stand tall and united against those who wish harm and hatred upon Jewish communities. Our priority in the Middle East," says the Prime Minister, "remains the same. Release the hostages, surge aid into Gaza, and a ceasefire that can lead to a lasting and just peace as a step towards a two-state solution. A safe and secure Israel alongside a viable Palestinian state," he added. Today, on the anniversary of the atrocities of October the 7th, students are once again planning protests. This is not who we are as a country. It's un-British to have so little respect for others, and that's before some of them decide to start chanting hatred towards Jewish people all over again. Thomas, your reaction to that statement, when he says about this isn't who we are, he's right, isn't he?
Yeah, and I think oftentimes it's actually the most privileged people in our country. If you look at some of these people, they're all in Oxford, they're in Cambridge. These people are supposedly the elites of our country, and they're out there leading these protests. I think of the guy who's just been elected as the president of the Oxford Union. You look at his grades, I wouldn't have got into Oxford with his grades, but these people are so privileged, they've been looked after by the system, and they're so privileged that they have nothing to fight against. There's no counterculture. So all of a sudden they've found this war in a distant country that they've made their sort of passion piece, and I think it's just showing you that the country is really sort of falling apart around this.